Paul Winston with Insurance Leadership, and I'm here today with Pranav Pasricha, the CEO of Intellect SEEC. Pranav, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me here.
It's a pleasure to meet you and talk a little about what Intellect SEEC is doing in the innovation space and how you're helping your customers. Maybe to start with just, and I know this will be a big question maybe, but tell me a little bit about what Intellect SEEC does.
Yeah, I think before we get to what we do, I always like to talk about why we do, what the purpose of existence of the organization is, right? We have a very singular purpose, which is making insurance about the insured. And I always say to people, it's kind of funny, it's kind of sad, really, that we have to say something as obvious as that, right? But if you look at our industry, we are obese. Right? If you look at the property and casualty stats, we spend 40 cents in the dollar managing our own business. There is no other sector of financial services that's as obese, right? We're like 20 times more inefficient than a typical Wall Street, fund manager, right? As an industry for managing money. So the reason we really exist is to bring fundamental disruption to insurance, which is a fundamental part of the economy. Right? To make that autonomous driving kind of reality true for insurance. So what do we actually do to make that happen? Mm-hmm. Right? So we've been around almost 30 years now. We were doing insurtech before insurtech was a legit word. Right? And we've innovated through the ages, whether it's Y2K, bringing in mobility, bringing cloud solutions. Mm-hmm. In today's age, we have created a cloud-native software platform for the industry, right? Where you can build native cloud agile software that will continue to evolve over time, right? So getting rid of the problem of obsolescence of software in the industry. We then look at the next big problem that we need to bring unstructured data into the industry. So we've created a big data platform that can assimilate and contextualize any form of structured, unstructured streaming data, right? And then the third big capability we bring to the table is through machine learning and different schools of AI. Basically, how do you make sense of that information, right? So those are three fundamental capability building blocks of the organization. Cloud native software, deep big data expertise, big data platform, and AI machine learning. So what we do with that combination is we pretty much are building what I call autonomous software for the entire insurance value chain. So for example, in commercial insurance, we are today the leading entity doing automated risk analytics, commercial risk analytics, all the way through to complex commercial underwriting, automated with machine learning. We do a lot of contextual distribution. We do life claims, right? We are increasingly coming in and doing AI-based process automation, total elimination of human intervention on manual processes. So that's what we're on about.
Yeah, well, that's plenty. So when you said at the outset that you're really about serving the insurance customer.
Right.
So those processes to bring better data, make it available to the insurer, improve processes. Is it about improving the experience for the consumer, lowering costs, maybe better risk profiling, risk-adjusted, rating, and so on? All of the above?
All of the above. So the reason I say that is we fundamentally believe insurance, end of the day, is about risk assessment, right? And if you get to the heart of that, and if you can do it frictionless, if you can do it well, you can disrupt the entire process chain around it, right? So if, for example, our fundamental belief is using the power of AI, big data, right? You can get to a point where you ask less, yet know more, and make better decisions. Right? And advise better. So to your point, when you look at, for example, distribution, everybody is now talking about how can I cut the question set, right? What we say, yes, make it frictionless, make it instantaneous, but also give the customer better advice. And that's where the contextual comes in, for example. Okay. Right? Are you underserved? Are you underinsured? Did you miss anything? How do I get advice quality up? Right? And that's how, so it's not just for us about a frictionless experience, that's a given. It's also about better decision making for the carrier, better loss ratio, as well as better advice for the consumer. So we always try to balance that trifecta.
Okay. So you've been at this. You've got a longer track record
Right.
of serving these sort of technology needs and opportunities for the industry. How's the insurance industry doing? Are they embracing this change? Are they seeing the opportunities, or has it been a slow road?
So, interesting question. I think a lot of interest, finally,
Yeah.
right? We're like, hey, we're 5 years late to the party, but thank God you arrived. But I think the state of the industry is a lot of enthusiasm, but a lot of confusion, a lot of hype and a lot of confusion, right? I think the value case in the industry is clearly made now. People know they got to act, right? Because like I said, right? I mean, we're
Right.
20 times more obese, like 40% on the expense and acquisition cost. You can't run a business in today's age like that. We're reactive. Can't run a business. So people have woken up to that. The problem is that I think the carriers themselves do not have the skill set in the organizations to make sense of all of this. Right? So when we deal with people, it's not about they don't get the concept. People inside the carrier organization sometimes struggle, for example, to make sense of technology A versus B versus C and how to knit them together.
Right, right.
Because these things require, for example, it's not just about data, it's about the analytics, so it's working in the data and on the data. Right? And many people struggle to join the dots. And by corollary, they struggle to make sense of vendor A versus vendor B. So I think we're going through an education process, and that is slow.
And is that something that Intellect SEEC does? You help educate. You're not only bringing the solution, but are you finding yourself having to educate them on connecting those dots, or it's just kind of happening out there in the industry and at events like this?
I would say we try to partner with the carrier firms to join the dots.
Right.
I think a lot of the joining of the dots is happening already, and that's exciting.
That's good. So, what are some of the obstacles that you've identified that you're helping carriers overcome as they sort of try to take advantage of these new opportunities?
Sure. Now that's a great question. So a couple of things, right? And the first and foremost is you talk about any of the disciplines. You talk about big data, AI, right? The first challenge or the first thing is working with these people to understand the sophistication, the depth you need to go in to make a working fintech solution, right? So like I said, there is a lot of hype. A lot of people who have a use case, they want to jump into it. So for example, 12 months back, people were talking about, hey, we want to pre-fill an accord form. And the first thing we used to say is, no, that's a bad terminology. Get the terminology right, because that shows thought process. We're talking about data enrichment. We're talking about a no-fill or a low-fill UI. We're talking about better decisions with supplementing, right? So don't talk about, so the first part of the challenge is getting the thought process of how you should think at solving these problems right. You know the problem,
Right.
How do you solve it, right? The second biggest challenge, or the biggest thing I like to emphasize with people is, if you don't do this with the right level of veracity, the thoroughness, you're going to burn your fingers. Yes, everybody is excited and want to jump into building a solution, right? We have so many people we work with who say, just give me the data, right? Hey, I've talked to 5 vendors, I want to have the biggest source of data. And I said, that's fine, but how do you check that the data that you're going to use is the right data?
Right.
Because in fintech, unlike other things, when you use that data if you use suboptimal data, if you use a data with 80% hit rate, 80% veracity, you're probably going to burn a hole in your book. You're probably going to expose yourself to reputation and legal risk.
Right.
And that's not what the regulator wants to hear.
Right. Right.
So coming back, what I'm trying to say to you is, we focus really, people say, well, slow down, check the veracity, focus on the use cases, get the hit rates and the veracity up to 90% plus, build your models to a point where they can deal with the inconsistency or the shortcomings in your data, right? Then go to production, right? So that is a big challenge, right?
They just I want to jump in and do this, but they need to do it in a measured way.
Do that, because what we don't want is people doing this and then burning their fingers.
Right.
Right. The third challenge that I foresee for the industry is that we risk making a bigger mess of ourselves than we did in the early internet age. Okay, with point systems all over, not talking to each other, sticky tape, right? And what do I mean by that? There is so much happening in the industry. People want to do projects with computer vision. They want to do a drones project for loss assessment. They want to do for roof inspection. They want to do no-fail UI. They want to do claims, right? It's all over. When you boil this down for a carrier, there are a few core pieces of technology, right? There is a common domain model. It may be huge with unstructured data, with big data, but there is a common domain model that you want to build. You want to have capabilities in NLU. You want to have capability in machine learning, right? So what I say to people is build those capabilities and the platforms thereof as an enterprise capability. You want to use computer vision. Don't jump into, I want to have a drone to go out and do, roof inspection. I want to have computer vision. What is the right platform for computer vision? Right? So embed these capabilities, the raw platforms at an enterprise level. Know how they interoperate. A big data platform is nothing without the right machine learning analytics and vice versa. Right? Take an enterprise platform approach to insure tech, and then build your solutions. And you'll find, because these solutions are never going to be ending, you're going to be rolling out a new solution every 6 months, every 3 months. So make sure you don't build point solutions.
So Pranav, you said that you were doing this before it became InsurTech. Intellect SEEC has been at this for a while.
Yes.
And at a conference like this, at InsurTech Connect, you've got this explosion of these startup tech entrepreneurs. And so how do you work with those companies? Are they competitors, or are they sources of new innovation that you bring into your solution?
A great question. So first of all, we are very happy to see the change in the industry and the flood of interest. Okay. I personally, as the leader of this organization, firmly believe in that, Tesla, Google kind of philosophy. You do good, right? Be open, right? Open your patents. Let the world innovate. Because if you have leadership, the more people that say the same thing as you, the better it is for the industry, right? So we welcome people in. The flip side of that, as a commercial organization, which is probably where you're going, the question is, for a big part, we are building an ecosystem, right? So like I said, you take an enterprise approach. So we've got, for example, an enterprise platform for big data and AI, right? So we are constantly bringing new partners into that ecosystem. We are actively partnering with IoT companies. We're looking for partners for computer vision. We are looking for, other analytics companies, right? So because we want that one platform for a carrier where they say, look, this is how I want to solve workers' comp, right? This is how I want to promote safety. That requires IoT, that requires machine learning, that requires 3 or 4 different technologies.
Right.
We knit it together.
Plug them in as needed. Okay.
Right? So we've been able to spawn a bunch of little ecosystems where there are synergies between these insurtechs, right? And the client, the insurance carrier, gets one working solution, which solves a mega problem. The flip side of that, the final side of that is, the downside is quite often people go and create hype, and quite often it makes the
shiny
process slower,
syndrome.
shiny objects. Because it is natural, right, for carriers to go, oh, but hang on, they said the same thing, or somebody else is showing me something shiny. Let me go on a journey of exploration. And we quite often try to take the position of saying, look, we are here to give you wise counsel. Do whatever you want to do, right? Pick the shiny object that you really like.
Yeah.
But here are the things you need to make sure you do right, not to burn your fingers.
Right.
So that's where we are.
So let me ask one more question, Pranav.
Sure.
What's with the purple?
What's with the purple? Yes. The purple, if you look at the thesis behind purple, is a purple person is the people who can blend business and technology together, right? People who understand why and how, right? And I think more than ever in our industry, we need that. We see a lot of people, like we were saying earlier, coming in from a tech background saying, hey, insurance is slow and we are smart and we can just come in and with no idea of the complexities of insurance, and vice versa, a lot of very smart insurance people trying to make sense of technology. So we are trying to put across to the industry, we are that purple person. who can knit the two together, join the dots.
That's great. Well, it's been a pleasure talking with you.
Likewise.
And thank you so much.
Thank you.